Get up, and speaking at Steelers OTAs on Tuesday, Ben Roethlisberger took accountability for some of the team's issues in 2018. He said, "I lacked in leadership." He also talked about going too far, critically publicly Antonio Brown and his route running. He also addressed the end of Brown's timeline with the Steelers. That's all right here.
It was hard to process it because I never knew anything. The last time we spoke was on Thursday before the last game. We hugged. We had a great talk. Everything was good. And then I heard from a third party that there were issues. So I reached out to him many times, sent him texts, sent him calls. And this is all before the season was over, and never heard back. And so I could never really find out what was going on. So for me, that's why it was so confusing. I didn't know where it came from. I would have loved to have had the chance to talk to him, and that's why I said yesterday, whatever I did to offend him, I apologize for it. I tried to do that in person and talk to him, but he just wouldn't allow me to.
Okay, that on KDKA TV in Pittsburgh. Swagoo here. And you were very critical of Roethlisberger yesterday. Then you were able to speak to somebody inside his camp. What would you like to say after hearing him talk today?
Well, how it was described to me, it was a misunderstanding that Ben Roethlisberger thought that after he and AB embraced each other that everything was fine. Here's the thing with me, though, Laura. Once you call a player out publicly, and you and I have been together for a long time, and I tell you, there are code breakers in a locker room when it comes to football players especially. And one of the worst things you can do is call out a teammate in the meeting, especially when you know a guy's personality. But to Ben's credit, and look, when I have information from that side, when somebody calls me, I feel an obligation to responsibly tell the people what we talked about. Ben's perspective was he and AB made up after that situation because they embraced and hugged. Now, I don't know if you can call it self-unaware or feeling like everything is blown over. It took a long time for him to respond to this, but you had to know AB had a problem with what you said.
Right, like that to me is the weirdest thing, the timeline here. I understand where Ben's coming from if he says that he thought they had made up, but he also knows AB really well. He's been with this guy forever. As you pointed out earlier in the show, they made each other's careers. So why he wouldn't think that AB would give it up is bizarre to me.
And see, going further, right, you can think everything is fine and dandy after you embrace. But it was weeks that AB continued the onslaught of Ben and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And people think you absolving Antonio Brown for the foolishness that he did, because he broke some cardinal rules to football as well, like not showing up for a game and doing all of this stuff. But with that being said, in this particular situation, I just don't know how you sit idle and let a guy attack your character without saying anything.
Quickly, so obviously Ben is a veteran in the NFL. Do you think he has learned some things about leadership that can be applied this year for the Steelers?
Well, he has to. Now, when he talked about leadership in his interview, he alluded to the fact that they didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
But leadership goes far beyond that. And one part of that leadership, and I'm sure he'll learn going forward, is to address situations when they do get out publicly to say everything is fine. Because, look, AB is not the only guy. He called out a rookie, James Washington. It was about making the kid better based on what his side told me. But with that being said, man, you cannot be out here talking about your teammates publicly.
Okay, Swagoo, reporter, analyst, he does it all.
Give it to me.
Let's get back. Let's get back to basketball. Are you able to cross? Okay, his suit is actually going to split. I just heard rips over here, Greeny, so say that.
All right, glad y'all went away. My thigh was about
That's his
to give out.
version of the lotus position. Anyway, speaking on a conference call yesterday, Pelicans boss David Griffin shot down the notion that Zion Williamson would need to be convinced to come play in New Orleans. He also talked about his confidence that Anthony Davis might be convinced to stay. Listen to this.
We're very confident that we have a compelling situation for him here. And if winning is what he is indeed all about, which we have every reason to believe, we feel confident that we can create the right and are creating the right environment for Anthony and, frankly, for high-caliber players of all types. In the case of Zion Williamson, sat with he and his family the night of the lottery. Alvin and I were also together in interviewing John Morant. I think because we've sat with those kids who are both incredible human beings and all about all the right things, we know unequivocally that either one of them would be thrilled to join us in New Orleans, and they're both very much excited about the concept.
All right, so I'm excited to talk about this here. Jay Willow will include you in the conversation. We talked about this a little bit earlier this morning. The Zion piece, let's put that beside it. He's going to New Orleans, and there's nothing even really to discuss there. But the idea that maybe the Pelicans can figure out a way with the addition of Zion and whatever else they do to make Anthony Davis want to stay. What is your sense of the chances that might happen?
I don't think it's great. Because I think whatever they would have to do would have to be before the draft, because I think the value would then all of a sudden go down a little bit because they would have more leverage on their position. I think David Griffin has all the leverage right now. I kind of see this as a move, like, are you going to get a return? Or unless you think you can talk him into it. But everything that I've been hearing from their camp is that, hey, we're still status quo. We're still in the same direction that we were, a month ago before we found out the news that we were going to get Zion.
Give me a breakdown on that situation right now, RJ. If you're a player of Anthony Davis's caliber, they're going to add Zion. They've got whatever, Drew Holiday and Julius Randle, whatever other pieces. How good a situation is that if he decides to stay?
It's a very good situation. Now, everyone agrees that his value will be highest right around the draft. My thing is this: Toronto took a risk, right, when they traded for Kawhi. Oklahoma City took a risk. And if you really believe in Anthony Davis and you really want to believe, maybe it's worth the risk to keep him and trying to show him what you can accomplish. That's the risk that you would be taking.
Here's the thought I have, Tibbs, and that is, in the NFL leading up to the draft, I always ignore anything anybody says because they're just putting information out there that they think benefits themselves. In this case, I think it benefits David Griffin to say, oh yeah, we think we can talk him into staying because he's trying to get the best offer he can out of Boston or the Lakers or the Knicks. When push comes to shove, how much does it make a difference that he's trying to convince the world, no, I might just decide to keep Anthony Davis here and take my chances?
Well, he's making that clear, and he's speaking to Anthony Davis. He's speaking to people that he's going to possibly be trading him to, but he needs the information from Anthony Davis. He has to have a sit down with him to find out if he can save this. It appears that Anthony Davis has already made up his mind that he wants out. Now, you got to remember, Anthony Davis has been there for a while. He knows how competitive the West is. So he's been through different GMs, different coaches, that sort of thing. To win in the West, you need a lot of talent, and I think Anthony Davis understands that.
So if you and I are on the same page in believing that he will get traded before the draft, of what we know of the potential trade packages, which one do you think is the best? If you're sitting where Griffin is sitting, who's got the best to offer?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you need to create a bidding war. You need two teams, and obviously I think they would prefer to trade him to the East. Mm-hmm. So you look at who has young assets and where you can get the most value for a player of that magnitude. He's basically a top 5 player in the league. So they're going to want a lot for him.
So who is that? Is that Boston?
Boston.
Boston would be one of the teams, yeah.
But how about I'm just throwing the third pick in there because the third pick, which is the Knicks pick, is R.J. Barrett in this draft. And you put Barrett and Zion together, maybe you have something.
Potentially, yeah. But if you're also Anthony Davis, if you're sitting there evaluating the West, if we get Julius Randle back, if we get Zion, are we going to beat Denver? Are we going to beat Golden State?
No, you're not.
If they lose KD, are we going to beat Portland?
Yeah.
Are we going to beat Utah with their front court with Rudy Gobert and how they play?
I understand this, but at the same day,
Houston.
if you go and team up with Bron, right? If you go team up with Bron, you're not beating Golden State, right? You're still maybe in the middle of the pack because it takes a lot more to get that done. So you can't just look at it as like, are we going to beat these teams?
We'll see. One way or another, I think the belief here is that he's going to get traded before the draft. Meanwhile, Saturday, we have a rematch of last year's epic Western Conference final between the Mercury and Storm. It's 3:30 Eastern on ABC, and it's on the ESPN app. The Storm won that series and the WNBA title. In pregame ceremonies, they'll be getting their rings and raising their championship banner. And we hope you'll get up with us tomorrow morning here. Jalen Rose-Stradamus will be back. Tell us where he sees KD next season, how Giannis can bounce back and regain control of the East Final, and NFL camps are underway. But are voluntary workouts really voluntary? That and more. Get up tomorrow morning, every morning on ESPN.